Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome into To The Point. Hope you guys are all doing well. Apologize for yesterday ending the show a little abruptly. My voice was fading. My throat was really not feeling the best. I am back today. Again, I apologize for this week. My voice has not been great, and I'm holding in here. I'm feel fine. That's the thing. I was out shoveling all morning, and part of that could have been just I don't like wearing coats. It's not something I enjoy wearing. It's just something I don't do often. I probably should. Probably a lot of stuff I should do that would be better for my health. But then again, why start now? But got a cold. We're battling through it. We're here today. But we got lots to dive into. Hope you guys did okay in the storm. Got there first. I still don't consider that a big snowstorm. I don't know what's the barometer for that for all of you. The roads weren't that bad. It wasn't that much snow. What's a big storm? Does it have to be 20, 25 centimeters? To me, it's got to be at least 20 centimeters of snow to be considered a big storm. 10, 15, clean that up in half hour. That's not a big job to clean 15 centimeters of snow. There was some snow this morning, for sure, but it was also nice to get outside, throw on the headphones, listen to a few podcasts, start thinking about the show, start prepping for the weekend. I don't know what happens where you all work. You might be able to work from home today, or the office might be shut down because of the weather conditions. There's always seems to be a snowstorm on a Friday. I like that. It's better than in the middle of the week for me because it's just, it's a Friday, you get ready for the weekend. You might, again, it's a different feel to it. So we got a storm. I still don't think we've had a big snowstorm in Atlantic Canada during the winter months. That's a win for me. Happy about that. Hope we don't see one. I hate snow. I wish we'd never see snow again. Cold weather. Hate it. If it was up to me, there would never be snow again. Kids could never skate outside on a rink again. I would not care. I would not feel bad for them. I got to do it when I was a kid. They don't got to do it. It's enough. It's enough. Little kids. Kids aren't skating on rinks anyway anymore. They're playing video games, or they're staying inside and playing whatever the hell games they play now. Again, I don't know what kids do. Try to stay away from kids too. There's a little inside look at Noah. Don't like kids. Don't like cold weather. Don't like people that drive slow. Those things can all kind of blend together. Because if you got a parent that's really protective, or a helicopter parent, or however you want to frame them, that has the little, you're driving. We're just going to go down this path for a second. Why not? When you're driving and you see somebody has their little kids in the back of their car, I don't get that. So because I'm driving, and say you're driving too fast and you see somebody and you accidentally hit the back of their car, is that going to make a difference? If you're a fast driver and you see somebody that has the little kid emblem in front of you, is that going to make you slow down? My experience, no. My experience, that doesn't make it. You drive the way that you drive. I don't understand why that's on there. Or people that have their pets, picture of a dog on their car. I have a dog. I'm not putting it on my truck. And sure, okay, my truck will be more safe if I do get in an accident, which, knock on wood, having had a ticket, having gotten an accident in my life, 24 and a half years, so way to go. But that doesn't make people slow down. That doesn't make people want to do things. Does it? I feel like Jerry Seinfeld with these observations today. I could do a stand-up comedy routine on all these different crap. I was on a flight last week. I got so much material. Maybe we should write a stand-up special. Everybody else is doing it. Chris Rock, Sandler, me. No difference between the three of us. No lack of charisma in 1/3 of that group that wouldn't translate on screen. But anyway, I wanted to start with that today. Just going into that. It's fun to talk about your life sometimes. Fun to talk about what's happening around you. I don't get to vent. I I don't talk that often. When I'm at work, I don't talk that often. Stick to myself. Throw on a headphone. So I get to talk to all of you, which is better because nobody can tell me I'm wrong and voicing it back. I mean, leave it in the comments if I am wrong. But otherwise, it's just a conversation between me and you today on a Friday heading into a big sports weekend. What a transition. Today on the show, in about an hour's time, Walker Campbell is going to join me. One of the busiest men that I know. He's younger than me. He has 3 to 4 kids now. He is a brave soul, that man, and but he's a good father. He's going to make some time to join me today. He's a big Buffalo Bills fan. His Bills will meet the Miami Dolphins for the third time this weekend. I will go over all the betting lines with Walker today. We'll tell them about you, give you guys advice on where you should put your money, this coming weekend. We'll also get into some NBA storylines. Walker's a big Los Angeles Lakers fan, loves himself some LeBron James, so we'll talk about the second best number 23 in the league history. And we'll also talk about the quarterback carousel this offseason. Where are guys going to end up? Who's gonna be traded? Who's going to be signed? Where does Tom Brady end up? So we'll talk about that as well. But before he joins me, a number of storylines from the NHL world last night. And the juiciest one for me was in Tampa Bay last night, where the Vancouver Canucks were in town. The game itself wasn't that interesting. Vancouver had a late comeback, but really wasn't a comeback because they lost 5-4. They scored a couple late goals to make the game somewhat interesting, but I had my eyes on a number of different things. Watched the last 5 minutes of the game. But it was before the game where I'm sitting there watching at about 7 p.m. last night, and I'm watching an episode of Bosch. An update, I got one episode left for the series finale before I start Bosch Legacy this weekend. Well, actually, side note, I'm going to finish Bosch, but I like to give movie recommendations. I gave it to Seamus the other day. The Fabelmans. This movie just came out. It won a Golden Globe. It's directed by the great Steven Spielberg. You could argue the greatest filmmaker in history. If you have not seen The Fabelmans, I highly recommend you see it. It's in theaters. It's also on HBO Max. It's going to cost you some money, but it costs you less money to buy it on HBO Max than it will to go to a theater. I can guarantee you that. Ordered it the other night, watched it. It's a fantastic film. It's about Steven Spielberg's life. The great Paul Dano's in it. Seth Rogen. Another film that I would highly recommend that I've seen recently, The Banshees of Inisherin. This is with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. A really compelling movie. Colin Farrell is one of my favorite actors. He won a Golden Globe the other night. He's going to win an Oscar as well in a couple weeks. Those are just a couple movies that I would recommend. But last night, I'm watching Bosch, watching Titus Gulliver do his thing, almost wrapping up the series. And I got that on my computer, and I got SportsCenter on mute. And it comes up that Oliver Ekman-Larsson, the formerly great defenseman of the Arizona Coyotes, former captain of the Arizona Coyotes, now a member of the Vancouver Canucks. If you recall, they pulled a blockbuster trade for Oliver Ekman-Larsson, trade away a bunch of crap so they take him in. Arizona wanted him off the books. He is a big no trade. Vancouver still thinks they were in a window to win. They get Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Well, since coming to Vancouver, let's be honest, he's been a flat-out disaster. A formerly great player, you can't even say he's a top 4 defenseman anymore. He doesn't add anything offensively. His defensive play has always been the weaker side of his game, and the Canucks flat-out stink. Well, for Vancouver, they stink, but they don't stink enough. They got Elias Pettersson. They got Bo Horvat. Connor Garland's now starting to score goals, maybe trying to add up to his value at the trade deadline. Thatcher Demko is a really solid netminder. But Oliver Ekman-Larsson has been really underwhelming for the Vancouver Canucks. And they sit looking at him, who after this year has 4 years left. And Arizona has kept some salary. Vancouver's still got to pay him over $7 million for the next 4 years. And as I mentioned, he's got a full no-trade clause. And old Brucey Boudreau announces that Oliver Ekman-Larsson is a healthy scratch. Now, Bruce Boudreau is having a hell of a year in Vancouver. I still can't believe he's coaching. He's been rumored to be fired a bunch of times, but I've also talked to you guys why he hasn't been fired. It's because they don't want to pay 3 coaches. They had to pay Travis Green to go not win a game at the Spengler Cup for Team Canada. They're paying Brucey Boudreau to coach a lackluster team, and they don't want to bring in another guy. Or do they? Get to that in a minute. Bruce Boudreau, healthy scratch Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And this is a big move, in a sense. Yes, Oliver Ekman-Larsson's not a great player anymore, but sometimes it's about symbolism and just the player, the person that you're doing it to, and the way that you do it. Ekman-Larsson's not a great player. Ekman-Larsson is not the future of the Canucks franchise, but he's never been a healthy scratch. He's still got the aura of a great player. He's still got it. Oh, he's in Arizona where he's logging 25 minutes a night. He's their captain. He's the franchise. He's not that anymore, but he still has that feel a little bit. Also, you have a player that you got signed long-term that has a no-trade clause. I don't care what anybody says. That player's got a little more, oomph about him. He's a little more sexy. He's got something that is just different than, say, Joe Blow that you could trade at any time for a bag of pucks. Now, the difference between Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Luke Schenn is not that much. Luke Schenn is that piece that you could throw out by the side of the road and somebody could pick up the old couch and bring it, put it into their loft and have a new piece of furniture laying around. But healthy scratching Oliver Ekman-Larsson is a big deal because he's not going anywhere. Bruce Boudreau won't be coaching this team, but Jimmy Rutherford, Cammy Granato, Patrick Alvin, the management core in Vancouver allowed this to happen. Bruce is still the coach. They lose the game. But what happens now? What happens with this development? I think for Boudreau, he's tried so many different things. He's had to be tough on JT Miller. He's healthy scratch Connor Garland. He's reprimanded Thatcher Demko when he was healthy, saying his performance just simply wasn't good enough. He tried to healthy scratch Brock Besser, but then he had an injury and Brock Besser was able to stay in the lineup. Almost every major piece on this team has been in Bruce Boudreau's crosshairs at some point. Now, Bo Horvat, Elias Pettersson, through all of this, these guys have played some really consistent hockey. Quinn Hughes is not having a great year for the Vancouver Canucks. He's one of the few guys that just haven't been caught in the crossfire. But Boudreau has been tough on almost every other piece that you can be tough on of some significance. And I'm wondering if last night was the last straw for Bruce Boudreau. Not the result, because they're going to lose many more games this year. You play Tampa in Tampa, you're going to lose. Majority of the league is going to lose. That's not the development. But this team is pivoting. This team doesn't have much to play for. Bo Horvat's still on the roster because of the hard cap, you can't make trades anymore, and I'm sure the asking price for Bo Horvat is still sky high. The Boston Bruins will wait till that drops to see if they can get him on their team. But I'm wondering if you're Vancouver and you look at a person that you'd like to hire as your next head coach. If he's available right now, why wouldn't you fire Bruce and bring him in? If you see the coach that you'd like to have go through a rebuild with, you see the coach that you think could help turn it around, have your team compete at a high level, while you're struggling, I think you'd bring him in. It makes a whole lot of sense to me. You do not wait. You act. You don't react. The Vancouver Canucks have been reacting for a long time. I always say you want to zig when everybody else is zagging. They just zag. They zag every time. They see what everybody else is doing, and they say, you know what? Yeah, we'll just do that. And it doesn't work. They should have been rebuilding 5 fucking years ago, and they're still in the same position. Since the Sedins retired, the Vancouver Canucks have been the same team. Adequate, some talent. Let's sign guys to long-term extensions, even though it makes no fucking sense. Tyler Myers, Brock Besser. So we got a big defenseman that's available. Our team isn't that good. Who's not that fleet of foot. Age 30. Let's give him 6 years. Sure. Smart decision. I remember when that was signed. I might have been on this show. And I said, this is the dumbest. It's so stupid. It's a sucker born every day. You see a player like Tyler Myers, and you look at it and you go, oh my God. People complain about Darnell Nurse in Edmonton. The guy can play. He's got nobody to play with. Tyler Myers just simply can't play. Sure, let's sign Brock Besser. Sure, let's give long-term extensions to everybody on this roster. Let's sign 3 to 4 year contracts to Antoine Roussel, Jay Beagle, the same player that do nothing for your team. Different coach, different GM, bad draft picks, trade this, and you're in the muck. The Sedins have been retired a long time, and you're still the same club. So, what now? I read a report yesterday, and this isn't from one of those Facebook websites that my dad always tells me to read or says, is this true? And I have to tell him it's not, poor thing. Mostly Leaf drama or Leaf rumors. Too much of that, I tell you. But this is a reputable source that the Vancouver Canucks are interested in Rick Tocchet as their next head coach. Rick Tocchet has not coached in a year and a half. He currently works for TNT as an analyst. He's okay on TV. Won 2 Stanley Cups in Pittsburgh as an assistant coach to Mike Sullivan, then went on to Arizona. He coached to a rebuild in Arizona. And honestly, they made a quicker turnaround than they should have. They made the playoffs in that time. They were a somewhat competitive team for having no money, no resources, and no hope. I think they fired Rick Tocchet because he got too much out of that team, because he was too much of a coach. Rick Tocchet and Phil Kessel don't seem like similar people. It's Phil Kessel's favorite coach he's ever had. Phil Kessel had his most success in his career in Pittsburgh. Might have had more goals in Boston and Toronto. His most success, should have won a Conn Smythe, was in Pittsburgh with Rick Tocchet working the offense. Power play coach working the offensive guys. Vancouver needs a rebuild. You can only say it so many times. They need to find a way to get some of these contracts off the roster. Easier said than done. This is a 4 to 5 year process. And I've heard the argument before, well, a market like Vancouver is not going to just accept that. Guess what? I think they're going to accept it because they've had mediocrity and they've had, let's not rebuild, let's not compete for, like I said, 5 to 7 years. So let's rebuild and see what we can do. And the best thing Vancouver can say, they have Elias Pettersson locked up. They're going to trade Bo Horvat. You're going to get good pieces for him. You do have Quinn Hughes. You have a netminder in Thatcher Demko. You don't need to trade everybody. Now, I do think when you're going through a rebuild, you need to trade good players to really commit to it and really to turn the franchise around. Toronto Maple Leafs had to trade Phil Kessel. Phil Kessel's a good player. Much maligned in Toronto, he was a good player. Taylor Hall was traded from the Edmonton Oilers. Good player. You need to get rid of good talent to truly accept it. Vancouver with Jim Rutherford, I'm not sure Jim Rutherford, quite frankly, should be the president of a rebuild. Jim Rutherford, his whole career has been compete, compete, compete. And when it's about time to rebuild, he exits stage left. I'm not sure he's the right person for that job. I look at the people in Vegas like George McPhee, Kelly McCrimmon. George McPhee did it in Washington. He's the GM when they brought in Ovechkin. They had to find Backstrom and find Wilson. You need to be able to accept that fate. Look at Ron Francis. He was perfect. Perfect for Seattle. We'll talk about Seattle in a minute. If you want to stick with Jim Rutherford, who is an older guy, okay. But he wouldn't be my first choice to be a president of a rebuilding team. Because he doesn't do it often. And all he wants to do is win. And I don't blame him. He's an old man. He's not going to be in the game that long. That much more. But with all that being said, if I'm Vancouver, Rick Tocchet would be a smart hire. Now, he might look at it and say this is not that attractive of a job, which it won't be. It's going to be tough sledding. But you pay him a little more money. You bring him in early. Let him start coaching now. And he's your guy. It's not a Bruce Boudreau where Bruce came into this year with 1 year left on his deal. Give Rick Tocchet a 3-4 year deal. You know it's going to be tough sledding. And let him coach the team. Let him work through it. Build a culture. Build a tough mindset throughout the losing and the struggles. And like any of these rebuilding teams, you got to hope you can get lucky. You got to hope that you can hit a first or second overall pick. Because you can lose every game you could be 0-82. And that doesn't mean you're going to get the first pick anymore. It's just the way it is. It's a lottery. It's ping pong balls. It's collusion. Just kidding. Well, maybe not. It's all that. It's a rebuild only works if you get lucky. New Jersey Devils won all those years. And you can look at it and say, well, they didn't get McKinnon, they didn't get McDavid, they didn't get Matthews. All true. All true. But they did get first overall picks. And while they might not be those guys, they're not scrubs. Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes. New Jersey Devils are right on the same page with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Took a little longer. But if you draft first overall picks, eventually you're going to hit on them. They got a couple. They were lucky. They weren't the worst teams in the league, the New Jersey Devils at that time. They got these high picks and were fortunate. But they did take advantage. Find good talent. The odds of Vancouver getting Connor Bedard this season are slim. For sure. Because there's so many teams that are worse than the Vancouver Canucks. But if Vancouver at the end of the year could be the fifth best odds, take your chances. Remember when the Rangers went all the way up and they got the second overall pick and they took Capo Caco? Sure, he hasn't been a great player for the New York Rangers, but you still won a lottery. It happens. It's not about the player you take, it's about the position. The Los Angeles Kings rose up a lot of spots. They drafted Quentin Byfield. He's still starting to find his game. I watched him play the other night. Played well. First couple games I've watched, he's playing with Anze Kopitar in the same line right now, which is smart. But if you could put yourself in a position, even the Vancouver Canucks, it's going to be a number of years. If you found a way to get top 2-3 pick, you draft Adam Fantilli. You don't get Bedard, but you get the number 2 pick in the draft. It's a start. It's a start. You have a player, you can send him back to Michigan next year, and maybe you get another high pick in the draft. And then it starts the process of turning things around. But for Vancouver, I just look at the team and they're constantly just, what do we do? It's not overly complicated to me. Getting Oliver Ekman-Larsson, he's going to have to be a buyout. He's the worst contract on the roster. It's worse than Tyler Myers, and I hate the Tyler Myers contract. At the end of this season, they should buy out Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Get rid of him. Because guess what, folks? Minnesota's buying out players, and they're trying to compete to win a title, as we talked about yesterday. They're trying to win. I think they won last night. Yeah, they beat the Islanders. Or no. Played somebody last night, Minnesota. No, they lost. They played the Rangers. I watched that game. Crazy game. That was Dallas. Anyway, I watched somebody play last night, Minnesota. All these games are jumbling together. Check. So late game with the New York Rangers. That was really interesting. Let's see. Because now I'm curious. So if I'm not senile already and my brain's going, that's not a good sign. They won. They beat the Islanders, yes. Rangers beat Dallas last night in a crazy overtime game. My guy, Keandre Miller. The point remains. Minnesota is competing with Winnipeg, competing with Dallas in the Central Division, competing to make the playoffs, competing for the Stanley Cup. And they got $15 million in dead cap on their roster. That means $15 million of the 82 that you can spend aren't in players, are in Ryan Suter in Dallas, and Zach Parise in Long Island. And they're better than Colorado. They're better than Nashville. They're right there with Winnipeg. They're right there with Dallas. That's their position. So if Vancouver, you don't want to win, you want to be at the bottom of the standings again next year, what's that dead money going to hurt you? It's not. You're going to be bad for a while. So who gives a shit if you got that money sitting there? Get you to the cap floor. And Vancouver Canucks fans are passionate. Vancouver Canucks fans will come back to the rink. And I still think they'll support the team because they've been waiting for a commitment to a rebuild for a long time. It's 11 years now it's been 12 years since the Vancouver Canucks have been to a Stanley Cup final. It's a long time ago. Sedins are in the Hall of Fame. Luongo's in the Hall of Fame. Sedins are working for the team in a different capacity. Roberto Luongo's works for the Florida Panthers in management. Those players aren't in the game anymore. Boston Bruins still have their core, but beyond the point. If you got to buy out players, if you got to keep salaries, do it. Commit to it. You have to look in the mirror and see the forest from the trees and say, we're not good. And if it's looking at Edmonton and saying, well, they're not really good either. Yeah, they're not. But they're better than you. They're not very good, yet they're better than you. That's the quote. That team over there, not a very good team. But somehow they're better than us. So what does that say about us? Oh yeah, we're not very good. Calgary Flames, they're not a great team, but they're better than Vancouver. I think Rick Tocchet would be the perfect hire for Vancouver. I think it's a smart. If that report is true, I think it's smart. Fire Bruce today. What are you waiting for? You're just keeping him around the whole year just to say, okay, bye, and then you hire your next coach? The Aquilinis got money. They own hotels. Sure, they didn't have money during the pandemic because you couldn't stay at a damn hotel. People were afraid of hotels. Guess what? You're staying in a hotel now, the prices are out the wazoo. They're making money out there in Vancouver. Give Brucey the check. Give Travis Green his check. Hire Rick Tocchet. And start moving some of these contracts. Ekman-Larsson, healthy scratch in the rest of the year if you want, then buy his ass out. If you can trade Tyler Myers, somehow keep salary and move it, you can keep 50%. Somebody take Tyler Myers for $3.5, $3 million bucks? Maybe. Unlikely, but maybe. I think a team would trade for Brock Besser, take the risk, even though his effort is always inconsistent, just because of his shot. Refreshment. Somebody will take Brock Besser. And I think you'll get a decent return for Brock Besser. It's not going to be, you're not getting Connor McDavid, but you'll get something. You'll get a good piece in return for Brock Besser. Teams are strapped, but they're not that strapped. Teams want to try to improve, and if they think we can get a 40-goal scorer, if we put him on the right team. Columbus took Patrick Laine. There's a lot of dumb teams out there, just like Vancouver, that think they're better than they are. We think Philly's going to commit to a rebuild like Vancouver, but they're zagging too. They might say, you know what the piece we're missing? Brock Besser. Let's trade whatever to Vancouver to make this deal happen. Another player we can put on this team. Suckers are born every day. Make it happen. Make it happen. That's my advice to Vancouver is act, don't react. Get the job done now. Now, staying in that division, this is one of the predictions I made before the season that I couldn't have been more right on. There's lots I get wrong, there's lots I get right, and I like to point it out in the show because it's about keeping yourself accountable. I'm only as smart as my worst take. One team I thought was going to be a good story and a good team, and they've turned out to be, are the Seattle Kraken. And the Seattle Kraken did something last night that no other team in the NHL could this year, and that's beat the Boston Bruins in regulation on home ice. The Kraken, who nobody care about, nobody watch, other than me, maybe a few others. They're on late, so people don't watch the Kraken. It was 8 o'clock start last night if you weren't watching the Leaf-Detroit game, which I'm sure was riveting. Didn't watch much of it. I tuned in and watched the entire thing. I had a feeling Boston had been off since Sunday when they completely dumped on the Anaheim Ducks, but the Kraken had played the Kraken's third game in 4 nights last night. They defeated the Leafs. They defeated the Leafs last week. They played Ottawa. They've beaten Buffalo. They've beaten Montreal. They've been on an Eastern road trip. And they go into Boston last night, and they take care of business as well. What the Kraken have, watching them, is balance on every line. You can go from Jared McCann, Andre Burakovsky, Matty Beniers, Yanni Gourde, Ilya Tolvanen, who they acquired on waivers from Nashville, who's fit in extremely well. Their defense lacks, for sure. But I will say Vince Dunn is playing at a very high level. He's playing extremely confident. He wasn't last year, but he's fit in. He seems extremely comfortable and ready to be a top dog this season for the Seattle Kraken. And they fly around after the puck. I would look at the team and just say they have an incredible, incredible work ethic. They fly around. They're tenacious. They're not afraid to go into corners, and they chase and create turnovers. And Boston had a hard time with it last night. Boston had the puck, and then they had somebody on them right away. Like a bunch of flies, the Kraken were. Brandon Tanev's a pain in the ass to play against. Yanni Gourde's a pain in the ass to play against. They have a lot of guys that you wouldn't want to see. Just because they're annoying. They're a nuisance. And then, as I talked about before the season, they have a number of guys that can score 15 to 20 goals a year. So many players on this team have the potential to do it. Matty Beniers is going to be a 25-goal scorer in his rookie campaign. Andre Burakovsky is going to score over 20 goals. Jaden Schwartz will likely get to 20. I still think Bjorkstrand has the potential to get there. Ilya Tolvanen might get to 20 goals, as he's found more confidence after coming to Seattle from Nashville. The Kraken aren't going anywhere. Martin Jones has a save percentage under 900. But I think that's really misleading because this team isn't good defensively. They're run and gun. They give up a lot of opportunities. Jamie Oleksiak plays big minutes on this team, and he's not a great defenseman. Like I said, I like Vince Dunn a lot. He's their best defenseman, bar none, because I think he plays even better than the numbers would give him credit for. But Will Borgen, ever hear of him? No, probably not. Vince Dunn last night played 25 minutes, and he played a great 25 minutes. He's got 41 games this year. He's got 30 points. It's pretty good. For all the people that this is the be-all, end-all stat, he's a plus 22 this season. My parents would love this defenseman because he's a plus 22. But he also, what I love about him, he eliminates so many rushes for the opposition. I watched Boston last night. They're a team that like to make passes, a number of passes for the blue line. They come in just a straight line. They have everybody spread out, 1, 2, 3. In particular, the perfection line, and they're so hard to defend. He stood up at that blue line and eliminated passes. He stopped the momentum of the Boston Bruins. And other than power plays and the occasional shift where you have a bad defense pairing on the ice, when Vince Dunn was out there, he wasn't in that much trouble. And that's why he played so much. Adam Larson played 25 minutes last night. Adam Larson and Vince Dunn are a really underrated defense pair in the NHL. Adam Larson will block every shot. Adam Larson is meat and potatoes. That Hall trade's horrible, of course, for the Edmonton Oilers. You look back on it now. But what he's asked to do on this team is what he does. He'll get 5 points every 10 games or whatever it is, and he'll play the penalty kill, and he'll block a shot, and he'll punch you in the mouth. Justin Schultz, he's not a great player. But he's not asked to be a number one guy, and last night he played 17 minutes. That's about what he can do. Carson Soucy played 13 minutes. But going through the lines, here's another good story. Daniel Sprong, former first rounder of the Pittsburgh Penguins, former Charlottetown Islander, was in Pittsburgh, never worked out. Then he ended up on Washington. Didn't work out, didn't have a contract after last year. Seattle brought him in. In 34 games, he's got 13 goals. But you look at it, he's got 13 goals in 42 games. Last season, he had 13 goals. So he's got 13 and 34. He had 13 and 42 the opposing years. He's got a better numbers. Eberle has 34 points. Burakovsky has only got 11 goals, but he's been incredibly valuable. Matty Beniers, I love him to death, like a son. Bjorkstrand, who I thought would be even better, only got 6 goals in the season. He's been underwhelming, but yet the team remains extremely, extremely competitive. Balance, smart, and what Ron Francis has done on this team is put everybody in the right position. And you got to give credit to the head coach as well, who was a kind of a weird hire you looked at and said Dave Haxtell didn't work out in Philly, was the assistant coach in Toronto. He's been a good coach. And now Seattle sits with 54 points, 4 points back of first place Vegas, and they have 2 games in hand. So with 2 wins, they would tie Vegas in the standings. They are 2 points back of LA with 4 games in hand. Seattle's not going anywhere. They're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to be a factor. I just talked about Vancouver. They're not going to make the playoffs. Calgary's starting to win games. I still don't love their team. Markstrom still doesn't look confident in me. They started Dan Vladar last night in St. Louis. He got a win. He's been as good or better than Markstrom this season. He's still trying to find his game. We're in the second half of the year. Kadri's had to do more than I think he should be asked to do. Seattle Kraken are better than the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers. Calgary and Edmonton have individually better players than the Seattle Kraken, but they're not a better team. They're not as well coached. They're not put in the right positions as well as Seattle is. And that's the key to their success, is just having everybody positioned correctly. Not asking somebody to do more than they're capable of. To me, the biggest evidence of that in the sport are defense. Defense is such a tough position to play. To me, it's the toughest. Goaltending is tougher, but you could make a strong argument that defense is even harder than goaltending for me because of how much you're asked to do. Forwards now are lazier than they ever have been. The stretch pass is at an all-time high. The come down the ice, swing around, and forwards don't even come in the zone to get an exit pass. The defense have to do more. They have to deal with people coming at them incredibly fast. Get shots through. Be smart. I value a great defenseman more than I value a great forward. I've seen teams with adequate forward group win, but you need a really great defense and a pretty solid defense core to win a championship. And Adam Larson was traded for Taylor Hall, and with that trade, he was going to be the Messiah. He had to be worth Taylor Hall in point value to that defense. It's not going to work. You know why? Because that's not what he does. Morgan Riley's been asked to be a number one defenseman for the Toronto Maple Leafs for a decade. He's not a number one defenseman. He's not capable of playing 25 minutes a night and you want to win consistently. There's just empirical proof. The Maple Leafs haven't won shit in the playoffs, and that's a big part of it. The Tampa Bay Lightning don't ask Mikhail Sergachev to be Victor Hedman. Mikhail Sergachev is better than most, and he might be a number one defenseman by the time Hedman is older. He's not right now. He isn't right now, and he's put in a good position where he's got that big dog in front of him to do it. Mark Mathot was not asked to be more than what he was. He did his job. He played with Erik Karlsson. They were a great pair. But it worked because Mark Mathot and the Ottawa Senators organization saw him and said, you know what, this is what he's good at. Let's let him do that. And we'll let him do it effectively and be one of the best defensive defensemen in the game. There's nothing wrong with that. No, you want to have balance, of course. But you also have to be aware. You also have to look and say, okay, if we don't have a number one defenseman, then we need about 3 twos and play everybody 22 minutes a night. Let's do it that way. Not 25 to a pair that simply can't. That don't have the Edmonton Oilers, key example. Again, I already did the Larson example. They're asking Cody Ceci to be a number one pair defenseman with Darnell Nurse because they have nobody else. I love Cody Ceci, but Cody Ceci's not a number one pairing defenseman. He can't play 25 minutes a night. He's being asked to right now because they got nothing else. You're going to put Brett Kulak on the ice more? Hell no. Philip Broberg's a kid. Evan Bouchard. Ugh. You got nothing else. You got to say, okay, CC, we know you're dead tired. We know you're asked to do it every night. You never have before and you're 30 years old, however old you are. Yeah, keep going out there. Can I get a breather? No, back on the ice. Because what's behind door number 2 is not a better alternative. But guess what? Door number 1 is going to lose some hinges. And before you know it, the door is going to fucking blow down. And then there's no door. The house is going to cave in. Rats are populating. The snow's coming in the door. And before you know it, it's cold as hell because your defense score sucks. Team building is IQ. It's understanding. But it's also acceptance. Acceptance of what you have on your team. Acceptance that this player is still valuable to us, but in this capacity. in this role. He won't be this. Or we need to slow play it to see if he can be this. Sergachev to Hedman. Keandre Miller to Adam Fox. Maybe Keandre Miller will be a top pairing defenseman when it's all said and done in his career. I can see it. Like the kid a lot. But you look at the Leafs, they've done a better job. Giordano, he's older. Maybe he can keep it up the whole year. You add TJ Brody, Riley. You have some insulation there. It's not just you're not asking him to be 25 minutes a night, Victor Hedman, Adam Fox, Cale Makar, Chris Letang. Even Chris Letang, as he got old, they added Dumoulin. They added pieces that limited his role, that gave him time off. Justin Schultz, when he played in Pittsburgh, was big because he did help them. Now he's on Seattle. And he's doing a good job there. And Justin Schultz isn't a superstar by any means, but he works in Seattle. He works being a second or third pairing defenseman, getting 18 minutes a night. He's an 18 minutes a night defenseman. He'll have his bad nights. But he made very few mistakes last night. How about the Boston Bruins looking at a strength of their team and adding to it? We got Charlie McAvoy. Charlie McAvoy, to me, is one of the 5 best defensemen in the NHL. You want to make your list for me? Do it. Cale Makar and Victor Hedman are above Charlie McAvoy. I'm not sure there's another defenseman that is. You can split hairs. You can give me Adam Fox. You can give me Roman Josi. Okay. They're good. Certainly. I'm not sure they're better than Charlie McAvoy. A physical defenseman that can move the puck, that can also add offensively, and is a surefire, lockdown, 25-minute-a-night guy. Pretty valuable to a team, I think. So you have a number 1 defenseman. And you look around and you spot, I'm watching last night. I do watch the Bruins a lot because they're so good and they're fun to watch. Hampus Lindholm, boy, it's a difference from being in Anaheim and to going to Boston. Just that rejuvenation of playing for a team that has a chance to win. Not playing in a pit of despair where you know you're going to suck night after night. You know you're going to be caved in. Hampus Lindholm is playing the best hockey of his career. And he's been one of the best defensemen in the league this season. He is playing so confident, and it's great to see. I watch him, and so many times last night, the Bruins didn't play great. Like I said, Seattle was by head and shoulders the better team. But he's so confident with the puck. He started so many rushes in his own zone where he didn't have to make an exit zone pass. He just goes, just moving around. Break through, go through the neutral zone, find a passer. He'll get into the Seattle zone, then make a play. To me, he was their best player on the ice last night. Marchand, Bergeron weren't that creative last night. Didn't have that many high-danger opportunities. Credit to Seattle as well. But to me, Hampus Lindholm has been one of their more consistent players all year. He was fantastic again last night. Boston had a number 1 defenseman and said, you know what, let's add a number 2. At the time, I thought this is a number 3 or 4. And they signed him to that long-term extension, and I didn't really get it. I remember commenting it last year at the trade deadline, and I didn't love it. I was wrong. Hampus Lindholm's been a perfect fit in Boston. He's playing the best hockey of his career. He's uber talented. He gets points. He's strong in his own zone. You got him. You got McAvoy. They have so much depth that Matt Grzelcyk looks even more confident, probably because he's playing with 2 studs in front of him, so he can just be Matt Grzelcyk. And he's not too shabby himself. It's a smart organization seeing a really good prospect sitting there and scooping him up. Credit to Boston and credit to Hampus Lindholm. Because I worry about players that just play bad teams for 4 or 5 years, and I think that they could be broken. Like John Gibson looks broken to me in Anaheim, where I don't know if he'll be able to find his game again. You're stuck in quicksand so long, your legs might not be able to have the same effort anymore. You can't make the saves. Your confidence is completely gone. If Carter Hart was given a fresh start in Philly, would he be able to find it? Not so sure. Speaking of goaltenders, it was an interesting last night. The Nashville Predators met the Montreal Canadiens. That game's not particularly interesting for any reason. It was PK Subban night, so he was honored at Centre Bell last night. But the bigger thing for me was the Nashville Predators started Yaroslav Askarov in net, and Askarov, former World Junior great, that's really where he got his publicity. He's a Russian goaltender, was drafted in the first round, and I left the game wondering, is this the start of Nashville turning the page? They got UC Saros. They don't have a great number 2 in net. They need to trade some pieces. They're not going to make the playoffs. They should sell at the trade deadline. I think they should start Askarov more down the stretch, and I think he should be their number 2 goaltender the rest of the year with UC Saros. Have him mentor the goaltender. They're both small guys. They've zigged where everybody else has been zagging, where they got 2 goaltenders that aren't tall, that aren't particularly big in the net, and it's been a change from every goaltender 6'5", 6'6", you cover half the net, and okay, if you don't have a goaltender that's 6'5" or 6'6", then you're doing something wrong. Now, I don't think that's right, because I think you could. It's a short-sighted way of viewing life, because if it's only one way that you can do it, then if you go to the rink, you see a goalie's 5'8", and you're like, no, I'm not going to watch him anymore. It's not worth even watching the tape. It's not even worth watching his game, because even though this guy might be fantastic, he doesn't fit the body type. He doesn't fit the size description, so let's let him go. But Nashville's not a fun team to watch. To me, they're not a playoff team. Philip Forsberg is there long-term. He's an interesting player. Ryan Johansson's deal is done at the end of this year. Hallelujah, somebody. Matt Duchene they have. Still there. But they're a team with Roman Josi, who's an aging superstar. UC Saros does look like their future in net. They do have Askarov, who could potentially be their future in net, or a trade piece down the road if he can develop into a NHL caliber goaltender. So you do want to have something that is tangible, something that you can sell to future free agents, other than the fact that you'll play in Nashville. Living in Nashville, I think, sells itself. Never been, but I've heard from people that go there, they absolutely love it. But I just found it interesting that Askarov got the start last night in Montreal. Big moment for him. You start your first game of your NHL career at the Bell Center. And I had to have motivated Cole Caulfield with my William Nylander chat yesterday, because the first game after that, he gets 2 goals last night. He's up to 25 goals on the season, Cole Caulfield. Good for him. I'll put it that way. I still think he's going to have to make some changes to his game if he wants to win, but he's new. The Montreal Canadiens aren't going to win this year. They're not a good team. But you look at the goal-scoring leaders, he's up to 25. And I believe he's definitely in the top 10. If we pull it up here, so I pull it up on my phone just a second. So yeah, he's tied for 9th with Kirill Kaprizov with 25 goals. Jack Hughes has 26. Mikko Rantanen has 27. Robertson and Horvat and Ovechkin with 29. You have Tage Thompson with 31, Pasta with 32, and Connor McDavid leads the way with 35 goals. Cole Caulfield, he's a young player. He was even the change you've seen where he was in Laval at this time last year. He's playing in the NHL. He's got 25 goals. I think he likes the system with Marty St. Louis. the opportunities that he gets. He plays on top lines. Suzuki and him have worked out well together. But I do think he'll need to make changes to his game, but if he can get 45 goals this season, build on that confidence. For Montreal, I think they got two very good players in Cole Caulfield and with Nick Suzuki. Two guys that are young and that are very good. A lot of these teams are in the same position where they've signed big contracts and you got to get rid of them. Montreal can't get rid of Jonathan Drouin. It's unfortunate. They'd love to for anything. He's such a cancer to that team. He's a pain in the ass, quite frankly. And I'm sure he looked at himself when he was traded to Montreal and he would be getting the PK Subban treatment, where he was brought back, honored, loved, French-Canadian. People up there, I believe, hate him because he doesn't play, or when he does play, he doesn't do anything worthwhile. They keep playing him in a bigger role because you have to, because he makes all that money, but he's not worth it. Jesperi Kotkaniemi brings more to the table than Jonathan Drouin at this point in their respective careers. Kotkaniemi, who does play on a fourth line in Carolina, but he's got 7 goals on the season. That's 6 more than Jonathan Drouin. By the way, Carolina's playing and has a legitimate chance at a Stanley Cup. Montreal will miss the playoffs again this year. Seamus and I talked earlier in the week about Montreal and what they should do. But if you can look at this year and build off anything, I don't think you have your goaltender of the future. That's a weakness. I think you need to keep building the center ice position, but you have a legitimate goal scorer on your team that I believe can score 40 goals a season in Cole Caulfield. He's got one of the better releases in the entire NHL, and he's a confident kid. And you built up that confidence after last year's season. He's got that American swagger about him. He's got that feel like Johnny Gaudreau when he came in the league from college himself. So that's a positive. But this team still has a lot of holes. They still have a long way to go, and I will say this continually. I don't know if they have a coach. Marty St. Louis never coached in the NHL. This year hasn't been a success. You're going to miss the playoffs. You built up Caulfield and Suzuki's played well. I knew those two players were good before. What else have you done? You're last in your division. It's not a win. I don't think Montreal brass expected that. I don't think they expected that the Buffalo Sabres would have 5 more points than Montreal at this point with 2 games in hand. That Detroit would have 6 more points at this point with 2 games in hand. That Ottawa would have 4 more points with a game in hand. That the Boston Bruins would have 21 more points than the Montreal Canadiens at this point. Be over 30 by the end of the year. Montreal's already got 22 regulation losses. The Tampa Bay Lightning have lost 14 times. The Boston Bruins have lost 9 times. Only teams that have more regulation losses than the Montreal Canadiens are the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Arizona Coyotes, Chicago Blackhawks, and Anaheim Ducks. San Jose has less regulation losses than the Montreal Canadiens. You're doing a good job tanking, but is Marty St. Louis doing anything? I don't think it's a positive thing you get another draft pick, but I don't think they expect it to be this piss poor. And yes, they got Monahan and IR. Who could have predicted that? Paul Byron, Mike Matheson, Caden Gooley, Gallagher, Jake Allen. But you string yourself along right now and you hope for Connor Bedard. But without goal, just getting Connor Bedard doesn't fix everything. It doesn't say, okay, now we're back. Now we're a team that's to be reckoned with. You still don't have a goalie. Your defense is still pretty inadequate. Your forward group, still got Drouin and Gallagher. Those contracts. Thanks, Marc Bergevin. But good for Cole Caulfield. But this program is it's pointing out a lot of teams that are in a similar position. You get desperate to sign these long-term contracts, but for a lot of these teams, I don't feel that bad for being in this position. Because it's one thing if you're Tampa and you sign a long-term contract when their eventual run ends, and you're stuck having to move these contracts to get to the cap floor. But for these teams, they never competed. Montreal lucked out in the bubble to get to the Stanley Cup final. Vancouver is never close. Philly, all these teams, they were never, Nashville, they were never that close. Nashville was close in 2017. Since then, they haven't even sniffed. They've been a surprise make the playoff team every year. Okay, we got in. Okay. Gives a shit about getting in. It's one thing about getting in. You have a chance to win. When LA was the 8th seed, they were an 8th seed just by a surprise. They were a good enough team to win the cup. They did. Nashville gets in. Nobody's afraid of playing the Nashville Predators. Okay, we're going to lose to them. Tonight, Winnipeg Jets versus Pittsburgh Penguins. I like watching Winnipeg. And Pittsburgh, I pointed out with a Pittsburgh comeback the other night against the Vancouver Canucks. This game interests me. Winnipeg is coming off a back-to-back, so it will likely be David Riddick between the pipes for the Jets after defeating Buffalo last night. But to me, the Jets display a really fun brand of hockey. They got a lot of hard-working players that seem to get it done in key moments. Josh Morrissey's playing like a Norris-type defenseman. Mark Scheifele's found his game. Blake Wheeler's playing tough. Nick Ehlers is now back in the lineup. Adam Lowry's on a career year pace for points. They got a tough D to play against with Nate Schmidt and Brendan Dillon back there who'll take no shit from anybody. They got arguably the best goaltender in hockey this year behind Linus Ullmark. And Pittsburgh's in that mix where they're going to need to find wins. For Pittsburgh tonight, and I'm going to do a podcast tomorrow. Tomorrow morning there will be a show. Touch on the hockey tonight. Also want to touch on another number of different things tomorrow, including golf, preview the Australian Open, which starts Sunday night. But Pittsburgh currently sits, they're 5th in the Metropolitan with 48 points. They're 11 points out of 1st behind Carolina. Only 7 points behind New Jersey. So they're still in that mix. 4 points back of Washington, but they have 4 games in hand. 3 games in hand behind the New York Rangers. For Pittsburgh, it's about finding consistency. They haven't had it all year. They won a bunch of games at the front, then they went through a long tailspin. I believe that Vancouver game could be a turning point for their year. Pittsburgh Penguins are a better team than the Washington Capitals, just for me. Washington's got a bunch of guys back. Nick Backstrom, Tom Wilson are back. They're healthy. It's a great feeling for, I'm sure, Washington fans, and Walker's going to join me here in a minute, and he loves his Capitals. But just looking at it top to bottom, I think Pittsburgh's a better team. Chris Letang's playing well. Sidney Crosby's still playing at a very high level. Evgeny Malkin's been very solid. Jason Zucker, he's a great player when he's healthy, and that's the operative word, when healthy. But when he's in the lineup, he's a top 6 forward every day of the week. Jake Gensel, he's a Kyle Connor. He's a great player. He's Pittsburgh's Kyle Connor. He doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but he scores goals. He'll come back. He'll go in his own zone, play smart. Brian Rust works his ass off, puts himself in gears. Pittsburgh's got a good team, and they got one of the smartest coaches in the NHL. Goaltending, Tristan Jarry, he's more and more injury prone. That'd be my concern with him. He's hurt all the time. Casey DeSmith is injured seemingly all the time. You don't want to be starting Dustin Tokarski. Tristan Jarry was injured in round 1 last year. So sometimes it's just about health, having all your pieces, having all your stallions together at the same time. But I see we got Walker in here, and I'll bring him in talking about this. And first off, I'll say, Walk, good to see you. Congratulations on the addition to the family. I know that's got to be exciting. But let's get right to it. Pittsburgh Penguins, they're creeping up on your Caps. If you're just being honest with us, who's the better team, your Capitals or the Penguins?
Ooh, that's a tough one. If I had to choose, I would. I think the Caps are better than. I'm not going to lie. I think they've been playing some really really good hockey as of lately.
Mhm.
I mean, the loss of John Carlson doesn't help. Hopefully, we can maybe pick up somebody at the deadline. But we've been getting a lot of good play out of guys. Like Ovechkin's been playing good. I think Connor Sheary's been really good this year. The addition of Dylan Strome has been really good as well. Even Eric Gustafson, he's been on a little heater lately, and
Yeah,
Darcy Kemper's been a rock in net. So I honestly think they're playing really good hockey, and it's a close one. I think the Pens are playing really good right now too. But if I had to choose one, I got to stick with my Caps. I think
right.
they do have a few games in hand though. I think.
Yeah, they got 4.
Yeah, they had, they they had a bit of a shaky start to the season, but I think they've really kind of found their groove these last couple months.
What was it like for you right before Christmas to see Ovechkin tie Gordie Howe?
Well, I didn't exactly want it to be an empty netter, but it was good. I applaud him. I mean, he's had a great career of goal scoring, and it's kind of crazy to think that he's had a couple shortened seasons just due to lockouts
Right.
and COVID years. So realistically, he could be a lot closer to that record right now than he is. But yeah, passing Gordie Howe, that's not many people in their lives will say they scored 800 career goals in the NHL. So no, I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, no, it's pretty incredible. And he's got 29 again. Like it's not slowing down. He'll get 50 again this year. Like for people that doubt him, I don't get it. It's a stupid bet. It's like betting against Tom Brady. But who else around the league has really impressed you lately in the NHL?
Oh, I mean, there's been a lot of surprise teams this year. I think one notably the New Jersey Devils have been
Mhm.
unbelievable. It's funny, fantasy league, I drafted Vitek Vanacek one of the later rounds, and I think he got blasted in his first game, and I said, "Ah, the Devils, they're terrible." Dropped them. Now
Right.
he's like one of the top goaltenders in the league, but they've been a nice surprise. I think Seattle has been a really good team as well.
Yeah.
I think they're a team that if they make a couple trades at the deadline, they could be really dangerous. Also, the LA Kings, I thought they were garbage, but they've been playing really good hockey lately too. So
Well, they,
there's
they got
a it,
they got your cast-off goalie, Phoenix Copley. He can't lose a damn game.
I I know the Caps seem to get rid of all these goalies. I don't like Vanacek, Samsonov, Copley, but uh,
You
oh
got
well.
Charlie Lindgren.
That's true. Yeah, he's been a great backup
Yeah, he's
for
been
us
pretty good.
actually.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's been solid. Last night must have been a tough night for your household because you had your two sons playing against each other. You had Luka Doncic v. LeBron James. Little late night Thursday night action on TNT goes all the way to double overtime. What were your emotions like? You know, your two favorites going toe to toe.
Yeah, emotions were real high. I it was a good game. I would have liked a little more consistency. I don't think LeBron shot the ball very well at all. But it was a good game. Really, I prefer that than a blowout. I was
Mhm.
hoping for a Lakers win, but I can never be mad when Luca has a good game and the Mavs get a win because got that futures bet on them, right?
Right. Um, with the Lakers, what should they do? I know LeBron says they should trade their picks and all this, but Westbrook's there because of LeBron, and the team isn't that good partially because of LeBron. So even if they traded their first two picks and they get Miles Turner and Buddy Hield or another package, I don't think the Lakers are good enough to win a title. What say you?
I don't I don't think they're either, but I think if you in that locker room think that if we get these two guys, if we have Anthony Davis healthy, which is really I think is the biggest key to all of it, because
Right.
when he's healthy, he's by far away their best player, and he makes them so much better on both ends of the court. I I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I don't really know what the 2027, 2029 NBA prospects are going to look like. I don't really know what picks they would have in that draft. I don't know if LeBron still plans on playing in 8 years or not. But I think I don't know. I think you have LeBron if AD can stay healthy. Westbrook's really not playing that bad. I think he's been kind of
Mm-hmm.
thriving in that sixth man role. They just they can't shoot. Like
Yeah.
they're a lot of these games they're in them. They can't shoot. They have so many guys going like 0 for 6, 1 for 5, 2 for 8. Like they really need to get a shooter or two that can knock down threes. I mean, I know everyone's asking for those picks, and they've been super hesitant to trade them. But if I were them, if I thought that we had any chance on going deep in the playoffs, I'd probably trade them.
It was an interesting game last night because Dallas isn't a great shooting team either. You know,
No,
they can't really shoot either. So there's a bunch of teams that are just drive to the paint and see if you can bank one in. And Dallas is winning games, but I look at them walk. I don't think they're better than Memphis. I don't think they're better than Denver. My guy Jokic, I think he's going for three in a row. But I, it's hard to win in the playoffs when you can't shoot, and you see it. And I just for them, I think they could sell to their fans we could win this year because Luka's just that damn good. But I think they need at least a couple shooters. But the problem is they don't have that many things to trade.
no, they really don't have many guys to trade. It kind of reminds me, Luca, of like a James Harden kind of situation in
Right.
Houston, where he's putting up these extremely impressive numbers, getting MVP talk, one of the best players in the league, and then come playoff time, that just doesn't work. The defense gets tougher.
Hmm.
Guys game plan for you specifically the whole series, and yeah, I'm not really sure what they would be able to trade. I'm not sure what they have for picks, but they really don't have many like prospects or role
Hmm.
guys that would be worth trading.
Yeah, who's the best team in the NBA right now?
Uh, uh that's tough. I would either say I want to say Denver, but I kind of feel like I can't disrespect the Bucks. I
Hmm.
just think they're so good. Uh, Giannis is incredible, but you know what? I'm going Denver.
Yeah,
Screw it. The Denver
yeah.
Nuggets. They've been playing awesome. Jokic has been playing out of this world. Jamal Murray playing good. Aaron Gordon been playing really good as well. I like what they're doing over there.
They got a good team. Yeah, they got a really good team. Are the Clippers and Lakers going to be fighting for a playoff spot for the 10th seed?
They might be. I think if the Clippers could keep Kawhi healthy, they'd
Yeah.
probably have a better position. But it seems like the Lakers and Clippers will be battling for that, the 9-10
Yeah.
seed, which is pretty embarrassing to say. One of the probably two of the most talked teams in the league battling for the play-in spot.
Yeah, well, the fact that my Kings are just so much better than both of them. I mean, it's a staggering thing to see when you look at the standings and I see Sacramento in fifth every day. I'm like, this can't be real.
The Frisky Kings.
Oh, they're frisky. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're frisky. Speaking of frisky, the NFL playoffs start this weekend, and it's a good weekend for you because the Bills are alive and well. They're in the playoffs, and Let's start with your team. We'll go in random order with the playoff games. So this weekend, the Miami Dolphins head to Buffalo to play the Bills. Tua Tagovailoa is still in concussion protocol. He's been ruled out. There's likely no Teddy Bridgewater. He dislocated his finger trying to tackle a guy, so he's out. That means Skylar S. Thompson, Hunter Thompson's son, not really, but he's going to start again this weekend after. And the Bills are 13-point favorites at home. My first takeaway, Walker, is this should be more than 13 points.
I totally agree with you. This was laughable that it was only 13 and a half. I honestly think it should be like 17.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
mean, Skylar Thompson, the third string quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, has shown no sign of being any good whatsoever.
No.
They roll to they squeak by the Jets last week, who played Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is going to be a slaughter. I'm not even excited for this game. I just think it's going to be a complete slaughter. But what is the saying? Better than a bye?
Yeah, well, yeah, you'll get ready for Cincinnati, I guess.
Yeah.
Big picture with your Bills, because I agree with you. This should be 17, 18 points. And yeah, this Skylar Thompson, unless something happens where Josh Allen throws 2 red zone interceptions or something and Raheem Mostert breaks up, but again, he might not even play. So, big picture with your Bills. No Von Miller. The pass rush clearly hasn't been as good, and they're not getting to the quarterback, and that concerns me a little bit. Josh Allen hasn't been exactly playing all. He's played fine, but he's turning the ball over more and more as the season's gone on. Confidence meter 0 to 100 in your Bills reaching the Super Bowl today is what?
Oof. It's tough. I'd say if I had to go from a scale of 1 to 10, I'd be about like a 7, 7.5.
Right?
It's tough. I think they have a tough road where they'll have to go through the Bengals
Yeah.
and then most likely Kansas City. Um, and then my pick from the NFC, the 49ers, who I think will reach the Super Bowl. It's a tough road, and they haven't been playing fantastic. Josh Allen, he really needs to clean up his red zone interceptions. I'm not really sure if he's like trying to force balls or if he's just panicking. Like the pick he
Mhm.
threw last week, I don't know who he
Yeah.
thought he was throwing to. It was a really bad throw.
Yeah.
But I think it is tough without Von Miller because he really did
Hmm.
bring that extra something to them. He would have been useful, especially against the Bengals and the Chiefs. Because the best way to beat the Bengals obviously is get to Joe Burrow, who who got sacked 8,000 times last season.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be tough. I think hopefully this weekend will be kind of a get right game.
Hmm.
Clean up our act, just get everyone going for the playoffs, and just prepare for the Bengals. I mean, it I can't wait for the next round. I think it's going to be a pretty
Right.
exciting matchup.
You've had concussions before. Tua's had at least 3 this year, possibly 4 another one we might not know about. I don't like to tell people to stop playing the sport that they love, Walker, but the fact that he was even in consideration to play this week doesn't sit well with me. To me, the bigger question is his career over? Because I think it very well could be.
I think it could be too. I mean, having this many concussions over a long career is troubling, but to
Right.
have it in one short season is really alarming. And I think he really has to take the time this summer, talk to his camp, everyone, around him who loves him, the team, and just kind of figure out if he really thinks this is going to be, the right move for him to keep playing, or if he's risking,
Mm,
his life, or
right.
the rest. It could go really bad really quickly if he starts next year and gets another concussion instantly.
Do you think DeMar Hamlin is going to be at the game this weekend?
I think he could be. It'd be nice to see him. I think
Yeah,
it'd be even cooler if his
the
first game
Cincinnati
back
game.
was the Cincinnati game.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Uh,
Yeah,
but I think he might be there this weekend. I mean, obviously he wants to be with the team and support them, so
it's
I'd like
it's
to see him there.
incredible that he's already home. Like after all that's how I was at the junior game that night, and I walked out of the rink, and I got that message, and I was stunned. Like I went from that high of that game, and I was just like, whoa, like this is. But to see him messaging players, he's at home now, he's in recovery. It's awesome. Let's pair the Cincinnati game with the Buffalo because Cincinnati, another game that is interesting because no Lamar Jackson, PCL sprain. He went on Twitter last night and talked about it. Baltimore does have a great defense, but as of right now, it could be Anthony Brown at quarterback. Tyler Huntley is, I guess, practicing, but there's no word on that yet. As of right now, Cincinnati is a favorite by 9.5. I think with Huntley or Brown, the number should be higher too, Walk.
I agree. I think this should probably be like a 12, 13 point spread. I will say this though. The Ravens have given the Bengals a little
Yep.
bit of trouble this year. And even last game, I think the Ravens turned it over, I think I think like four
Yeah.
times. I mean,
Yeah.
they had opportunities to be right in that game, and the Bengals didn't really capitalize on them being shorthanded. They do have a great defense, which they're going to have to lean on heavily for this game because the Bengals are just rolling right now. They're the hottest team in the NFL. So, but I agree. I thought the line would be a bit more. I'm not exactly sure which way I'm leaning, just because I think the Ravens D could give them a little trouble.
Right.
But I don't know.
I think
I
you
do.
need a couple turnovers for sure to win the game. For Baltimore to
Yeah.
have a chance, I think they need to turn the ball over a number of times.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So hopefully they can do a good job of getting to Joe Burrow, making him a little uncomfortable, make him throw quicker than he wants to.
Right.
I don't know. I like a dog.
Yeah, I know. I like a
But
dog too.
I don't know. A 9 point dog isn't really.
Yeah, it's not that it was. If it was 14, I'd really like. I see the Buffalo line, and I'm still not taking the Dolphins. I'm not doing it because it's not. I just know it. It's not. I wish, but I can't. But yeah, this Baltimore game is interesting. Let's go to tomorrow
Cover
afternoon.
6 points.
Yeah, 2 field goals. Um, Tomorrow afternoon, Seattle heads to San Francisco to play Brock Purdy, hottest quarterback in the NFL, and the 49ers. 49ers are favored by 9.5. Another pretty big line for a playoff game. You worried about San Fran at all?
No, their defense is outstanding.
Yeah.
I think they will give the Seahawks all they want and more. I'm not really a believer in Geno. I
No.
know he's had a pretty good year. I mean, good story, but
Pro Bowl. Gino.
Pro Pro Bowl Geno. I would have rather seen the Lions get in, but it
Ditto.
is what it is.
Yeah.
I just think the 49ers they're so good. They have the best defense in the league. So I think they'll give the Seahawks trouble all night. Also, in terms of Brock Purdy, he's playing really well, but I think it's almost at this point it's been known that they don't really need a stud quarterback to play back there for them to be successful. I mean, they have so many weapons.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, George Kittle. McCaffrey is like a Ram truck. That guy, he can do everything. That was such a key pickup for them.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
I mean, Brock Purdy's playing great. It'll be interesting to see if he continues to play good in playoffs. Hopefully give them a little better chance than Jimmy G did. I know he wasn't really the greatest playoff performer. But I kind of like this spread. I think the 49ers will cover though. I don't think the Seahawks stand a chance.
No, I agree. I have San Francisco going to the Super Bowl as well before the year, so I'm going to stick with them, despite it being Brock Purdy. But
Mr. Relevant.
that pass rush for San Francisco, I don't think Gino's gonna have a fun day. Nick Bosa's
No.
hungry, and he usually can get to the quarterback. Our next game, I know, will interest the both of us because we've been in text exchanges where we've talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars off and on all year. They were once frisky, and now that they're a playoff team and a division winner, they are now the horny Jacksonville Jaguars, where the Chargers head to Jacksonville, but the odds makers show them no respect, and Jacksonville is a 2.5 point home underdog. Trevor Lawrence, the prince, that beautiful man, sits there with the hair, and he's not even given the respect of being a -1 nothing. What do you make of this game? I think this is gonna be a great football game. But what do you make looking at this one?
This should be a great game, but give me the Jags money line.
Oh
No,
wow!
no, no Mike Williams. He was ruled out for the
I
game.
know, just saw that. Yeah,
Is Brandon Staley like the dumbest coach in the NFL? Plays all his
I
starters
know he's an
in
idiot.
Week 18 in a pointless game against the Broncos. That made no sense to me. But man, the Jags are rolling. Trevor Lawrence has been a top 3 to 5 quarterback in this league since probably week 8 or 9. He's been
Yep.
playing phenomenal. Um, the Chargers suck at stopping the run. I think ATN will have an absolute field day. This is just set up for the Jags to win. The Prince gonna get his first playoff win.
Right.
Gonna send Justin Herbert packing. And yeah, give me the Jags money line. I can't believe they're a home dog. I thought they'd be favorites in this game.
Yeah, I love their defense too for the Jags. Josh Allen, the
Yeah.
other Josh Allen's playing really
Yes.
well, and Trayvon Walker. And they force turnovers, they make plays. Yeah, no Mike Williams. Why the most injury-prone wide receiver in the whole fucking league? Yeah, let's play him the last weekend of the season. I'd love to make a futures bet that if the Chargers lose this game, Sean Payton's the head coach by next Friday. But you can't make that bet. But that's something if I could, I would make because I think the Chargers will fire Brandon Staley if they lose this game. How about you?
They probably should consider it. I mean, that's just a terrible decision.
Yeah.
They're locked into the 5 seed. Locked in. And they still play all their starters.
Hmm.
And I know Bosa got banged up.
Yeah.
Mike Williams is out now. You played Keenan Allen, who was injured for 2/3 of the season. Why would you even risk it? I don't understand that. To beat the Denver Broncos,
And you
like,
lose.
and you lose.
And you
Good.
lose too. Yeah.
I had the Broncos winning
Yeah,
that
me
game
too.
too. Russ is back.
Yeah, that's right.
Next year, futures bet Broncos to make the playoffs. Lock it in.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. But yeah, I'm just because I'll probably take Jacksonville plus 2.5. I think the Chargers will find a way to win this game, but
You
I don't
gotta
know.
believe in the Prince.
Yeah, I know the Prince. He didn't play well last Saturday though.
No,
Against the Titans, he
no, he
did
didn't.
not play well that night. That scared the hell out of me. But
Getting the
he'll
jitters
be good.
out.
Duval Nation will show up, and yeah, we'll see. Sunday afternoon, the New York Football Giants, the smart football Giants who sat out all their players in the last week, unlike Brandon Staley, head to Minnesota to play Kirk D. Cousins and the Vikings. What do you make of this one? Minnesota -3.
I mean, does anybody believe in the Minnesota Vikings? I don't
The
think I've
Vikings don't believe in themselves.
I don't think I've heard a single person say, yeah, they're legit.
Yeah.
I mean, they're what, 14-3,
Yep.
and they have a point differential of -19. I'm not really sure how that happens,
Right.
but I love the Giants in this game. Uh, I think Brian Daboll, potential coach of the year.
Hmm.
I mean, the last time they played,
It was
the
overtime,
Vikings.
right? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the Vikings barely got a win. So I think if you're New York, I think they have a sense of feeling like, hey, we can win this game.
Right.
I think in the last time they played, I think Daniel Jones threw for over 300 yards,
Yep.
which is crazy. I mean, he's I wouldn't call him an elite passer by any means, but I think that I just like the Giants. I think they've been I know they've been kind of on a downward spiral. They started the year hot, but I think I like this spread. I have them at +3.
Hmm.
I think they'll cover. I think they'll win this game, honestly.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me to see them win either. Daniel Jones is playing good. He's not turning the ball over. He's playing good
Yeah.
football. You don't have a receiver you can fucking name, but somehow they continue to find ways to win. Saquon Barkley, their defense can get to Kirk Cousins because that offensive line for Minnesota is banged up too. So I like the Giants. Minnesota's 11-0 in one score games, which is completely unheard of. It's the best record in the history of football. That's gonna catch up with you. It's got
Oh
to.
yeah.
I think this will come down to the wire, but I think it's smart money to put it on the Giants because I think this very good chance it's a field goal game, and either way you cover.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping the line moves to 3.5 because that would be a perfect
Right.
line to hit because obviously I don't you don't want to push, but it feels like a field goal game to me. Who knows? Maybe Kenny Galladay comeback season, big touchdown last week.
He's
But
big
I
in
mean,
the playoffs.
Justin Jefferson hasn't really been that great the
Mhm.
last couple weeks. So
Right.
if they can find a way to kind of shut him out, I mean the Vikings are nothing without him. He is the offense.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, you eliminate him and take your chances with Delvin Cook, see what happens. Final game of the weekend, Dallas at Tampa Bay. Dallas had maybe the only worse weekend than the Chargers last week is that they played all their starters and they wish they wouldn't have because they played that horrible. But Tampa is a 2.5 point home underdog. Yes, Tom Brady is the underdog in this game. Do you have faith in Dak and the Cowboys?
No, I don't. Give me
No.
the home dog. Give me TB12.
Yeah.
I honestly don't like either of these teams that much.
Right.
I think the Cowboys defense has been a total mess as of lately. They can't stop anyone. The only saving grace for them is that Tampa Bay can't score a lick.
Yeah.
Um, but I think Dak's probably going to turn the ball over once or twice.
Right.
This is just classic. I feel like this has been happening all year. Close game, or Tom Brady's losing by a touchdown, late fourth quarter drive, win by a
Mhm.
field goal. This game, the Cowboys have been scoring a lot, but I just have this feeling, this weird, sneaky feeling that Tom Brady's gonna get a flag or get the right call at the right time, like he
Right.
always does. And these are just two messes of a team. But if I have to put my money on one, I think I like the Bucks in this game.
Yeah, I also thought about the Carolina game where Tom Brady threw the ball down the field for one of the first times all year. And Mike Evans was going up against Henderson, who likes to take chances. Trayvon Diggs likes to go for the interception. He likes to play it risky play, and I think he could get burned a few times in this game doing that. So I look at that as an X factor. Also, Dallas needs to be able to run the football to win because Dak can't throw the ball 35. We've seen it so many times. They don't win. And I also find it so hard to believe that the team that's going to dethrone Tom Brady, maybe it's his last game ever, is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. I just can't in my mind see that happening.
No, I agree. I can't see that happening either. I mean, you need to keep Dak to a minimum of throwing, and you need a run game to get going because it had Tony Pollard was on fire, and he hasn't been that great lately.
Hmm.
Really, it's their run game is really what makes them dangerous, and if they can't get that going, then I feel like they're screwed. I mean,
Right.
you saw it last weekend. I mean,
Yeah.
the Washington Commanders and Sam Howell steamrolled them.
Yeah, Sam Howell outplayed Dak Prescott by massive proportions. So that was staggering. What's the best game of the weekend?
I think the Jags Chargers game will be the
Yeah,
best
me
game,
too. Yeah.
for being honest.
And I also
Like,
heard last night that Al Michaels is calling the game on NBC. So he's moving over from Amazon
ooh,
to call the game. Yeah, with Tony Dungy
nice,
tonight. So yeah,
nice,
yeah, not
nice.
Jason Garrett or anybody else.
No, I like that. I'm saying that.
Yeah, get him back on NBC.
Yeah.
A lot of quarterbacks available. Derek Carr said his goodbyes to Vegas yesterday in an emotional Instagram post. You got Lamar Jackson, who's going to be a free agent. Aaron Rodgers, who the hell knows where he might end up. You got porn star Jimmy, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr. Let's start with him. Do you have a feel where he might end up?
uh, I feel like I think the New York Jets might be a good spot for him. I think they'll
Mm-hmm.
try and get him. I don't think the Jets will be able to pull Tom Brady. And really, if you don't get Tom Brady, I think the next best option is Derek Carr.
Right.
Um, I hope the Raiders have a solid plan though, because I'm assuming they're going to try and get Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the assumption. And if they can't, are they stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo or
Right.
Jared Stidham? You think Devontae Adams is going to be thrilled about that? But no, I think Derek Carr goes to New York. It's a fresh start with a good team. I think they are the definition of a quarterback away from being dangerous. Their defense is really good. They have some really good young pieces. Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson,
Yeah.
Elijah Moore. I think Derek Carr going to the Jets would be good, and I think he'd thrive, and I think it would make them pretty dangerous in that division.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's perfect fit for the Jets because I think the only way they can get Tom Brady is that he looks at it and says, I know one of his sons lives in New York with his first ex wife, and he might want to be closer to him. So that could be something that could work out. But Tom Brady in a Jets uniform just doesn't, I
No,
can't see that happening. I think Derek Carr would fit well. Do you think Aaron Rodgers would be a good fit for the Jets?
he might be.
Brett Favre.
Brett Favre. Yeah, I never even really thought about that. I think Aaron Rodgers would fit there pretty well too, actually. It's tough to say with him because you don't really know what he's going to do. He
Yeah.
says he'd be fine to walk away from $60 million. I think he's full of shit.
Yeah.
But I think he would fit in there too. He's kind of like at this point in his career, he's kind of similar to Carr. He's like a mid pack
hmm
quarterback. I mean he was not good this year at all
No.
whatsoever. So I think you get a mid pack quarterback in New York. I think that's all they really need is someone who can decently throw the ball because they got Zach Wilson, Mike White, Joe Flacco. I'd get rid of all three of them if I were the Jets.
Yeah. How about Lamar Jackson? If you're the Baltimore Ravens, do you franchise tag him? Do you re-sign him? What would be your plan of attack with him?
Well, I'd love to re-sign him, but I kind of get where they're coming at, where they don't want to give him all that guaranteed money,
hmm
especially where he's been injured 2 years in a row.
Yep.
Right? See, they missed the playoffs last year because he was injured. They make the playoffs, but he's not playing this year. They're probably going to lose. And I think if you're them, I think you have to franchise tag him.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just let him walk.
Yep.
I think that'd be ridiculous. So I think you franchise tag him. Hopefully, you can come to some sort of agreement. But I wouldn't be giving him all that guaranteed money. It feels too risky.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't do it either because I'd franchise tag him. You can work on an extension then if you want, like after that, but you at least have him for next year, and then you can see what your options are after that. But yeah, he's too much of a flight risk right now, and it's unfortunate because he could have I think he's worth a lot of money when he's healthy because he's a really good quarterback. But health is paramount. How
Yeah,
about?
I
Oh no, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say I think it's a tough situation for them too because you see what their offense is like without him, and it's
Yeah,
garbage. They have a team built around his specific style of play, so it's really not easy for them to just plug in somebody else and make it work.
right,
They'd
right,
have to almost restructure the whole offensive roster.
right. Giants, Daniel Jones, long-term extension.
I think you have to after this
Yeah,
year. I mean,
yeah,
he played good. I mean,
yeah.
he
He
didn't
did. He did.
he played good, and he did it with terrible wide receivers. I mean, he had absolutely nobody.
Yeah,
They found a way to make the playoffs. I know Brian Daboll is getting a lot of credit for that, but Daniel Jones just played good this year, and I think if he can continue to play that way, then yeah, I think he's worth the extension because he's a dual threat, right? I mean, he's not an amazing passer, but he's a really good running quarterback. He's big
yeah.
and he can get those first downs easily. So yeah, I think you got to sign Danny Dimes.
Yeah, I give him a 3 4 year extension. Mid-pack money. I think that's the
Yeah,
smart play. Titans keep Ryan Tannehill.
I mean, what? I don't know who else they would get. I clearly they don't like Malik Willis that much. They didn't even want to play him at the end of the year.
Yeah,
So I feel like they're almost stuck where I don't think they're that.
I wonder if they
I
just
don't.
cut him and say they go full Houston Texans, for next year, and
Well,
they draft Caleb Williams or Drake May.
that's what I'm kind of thinking because they don't really have any appeal other than
No.
Derrick Henry, and he's not an appeal to a quarterback, right? Like they
Hmm.
don't really have good receivers. Like Tannehill's not really that good. You bring him back for what? You probably don't make the playoffs.
Right.
I think they should, let Tannehill go. Maybe, they could probably get a lot for Derrick Henry if they want to trade him
Right.
and just kind of start over.
Yeah, I've been thinking more like that too. Their roster isn't good whatsoever, and the fact that they almost won the division is crazy. But they could easily be the Houston Texans of next year and maybe actually get the first pick in the draft and not win a meaningless game at the end. But Ryan Tannehill would be sought after because he's better than a lot of. I'm sure
Yeah.
the Washington football team would love Ryan Tannehill. If he was available, he'd be better than anything that they've had. Uh, you know, the Miami Dolphins may need a quarterback. They've had Tannehill before, but I think there's gonna be more and more teams that come out of the woodwork and look around and say, well, the Colts, they're gonna need a quarterback. So yeah, the Titans may very well be looking. I just hope for our sake that the Green Lizard finds a backup job for next year in the NFL.
I totally agree. I think he'll still be in Washington. I think they really like him there. I
Yeah,
think they were all kind of bummed out when he lost his starting job at the end of the year, which is such a
yeah. To go with
weird turn.
Carson Wentz in the must-win game of the year, and Carson Wentz throws for like 110 yards and 3 interceptions.
And Ron Rivera didn't seem to know they could be eliminated.
Yeah, yeah. That was a weird turn of events there, and he's
Uh,
trying to sell the team, and Rivera's still there. Just a gong show in Washington. Um, how's life been with another addition to the family?
Pretty good. No, it's been good, man. New addition to the Bills Mafia. It's babies they don't really do much, so they can just kind of sit there and watch the
Right.
game whether they want to or not. I'm not sure if they can see the TV screen yet because I know they can only see a certain distance, but trying to get her into it at an early age, only a few weeks. Born at the
Right.
right time, playoff season.
Yeah, that's
So
true. Yeah.
it's been good. It's been good though.
Getting her like start talking to her about like gambling lines and different
Yeah,
parlay options. It's her
trying to
first
show
word
her
will
the
be
different ones.
parlay.
Oh, it's gonna be a few parlays this weekend. I
Yeah,
Yeah, trying
same.
to teach her teaser bets and whatnot.
It's always gotta love a good tease. Well, I know you're busy. I appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the Super Wildcard weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Take care.
You too.
There's Walker Campbell, everybody. Great to chat with him. Fun to get into the NFL weekend. We got Seattle, San Francisco, 5:30 tomorrow, Fox. Chargers, Jacksonville, 9:15 Saturday night, NBC. Miami at Buffalo, 2 on Sunday, CBS. Giants at Minnesota, 5:30 at on Fox. Baltimore at Cincinnati, 9 o'clock on NBC. And the weekend finishes Dallas at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 9 p.m. on Monday night on the mothership. I would go San Francisco minus 9.5. I hate betting favorites. I won't be betting much this weekend on. Well, I'll be betting, but not on football anyway. Not that much. Betting on golf. I made a couple bets. The old Sony Open. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But I go San Francisco minus 9.5. Chargers at Jacksonville. It's plus 2.5. I'd love this number to go up in the Chargers' favor. It won't because I think a lot of money is coming in on Jacksonville. People like betting on the Jags. They think they could pull off an upset. No Mike Williams is a big deal. I got to bet an underdog. I'm betting Jacksonville plus 2.5. Miami at Buffalo. It's a huge spread. Miami is a third-string quarterback. They can't throw the ball. Skylar Thompson. No. Buffalo minus 13. Giants at Minnesota. Minnesota wins all these close games. They're not that much better than the New York Giants. But everybody's picking the Giants. I'm going with Minnesota minus 3. Kirk Cousins, let's ride. The game does start at 5:30, which scares me. It's not 1 o'clock, but I'm going with the Minnesota home favorite. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Cincinnati minus 9.5, going with the home favorite there. And Dallas at Tampa Bay. Give me Tampa Bay plus 2.5, and I'll take Tampa Bay to outright win against the Dallas Cowboys. Tomorrow, I want to get into the start of the UFC season, get into some rumors. Going to talk about the Australian Open, start to tee that up. We'll chat about the Winnipeg-Pittsburgh game this evening in the National Hockey League, which is a spicy one, and a whole lot more. So, until then, have a great Friday, everybody. Have a great start to your weekend. This is To The Point.